Oh, hey guys, Pete here from Pete's Creation Station, here to do another video for you. So on the menu today, I'm going to talk about an ayahuasca vision that I had. It was pretty significant, life-changing, well, maybe not life-changing, but pretty changing. Oh god, that's so, oh my god. Oh jeez. Oh, anywho. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of synchronicities that happened. So, this was, I was in an ayahuasca ceremony deep into the trip, and let me just recollect this so I say it properly. Yeah, so basically there were these assistants that would just kind of chant, sing along, and to try to like facilitate visions and stuff in people, and they would do it individually, so they would like focus on one person for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever and just sing to that person. And I remember when it came my turn, the guy told me to sit up, so I sat up, and he was sitting in front of me, and this is in a complete dark room, and it's like you're kind of in this delirious state, and you're like, I don't really know what's going on, but sit up means sit up, so I just sit up, and he was talking. No, he wasn't talking. What am I saying? He was singing, or chanting or whatever. There are no words. He wasn't singing any words. He was just kind of singing melodies and stuff. Or maybe there are words in some other language I didn't know. Anyway, so I was sitting up and I was just thinking about all of this and how stupid it was. I was just like, why the hell is someone singing to me? This is so, like, as if sitting in front of a person and singing to them is somehow going to trigger some, like, oh, I'm going to go to space and talk to spirits and shit like that. I was like, that's so stupid. So then that's kind of like, I identified that. I was like, that's my lower self. That's like judgmental and like can't appreciate things part of me. And then there's like my higher self that's like all loving or whatever. So I was like, this is a lower self thing. And then I was like, you know what, you're like just shut up and just appreciate this. It's beautiful. Just appreciate it for what it is. Stop trying to like find all this negative stuff about it. Like, just like I was just so sick of negativity or whatever. And it like that thought transformed into like this vision where I was yelling at a spider, and I was like, you spider, you're stupid or whatever. And the spider was just like so scared. It's like, and I just kept yelling it. I was like, oh, fucking spider. And then it ran into a hole, and it went inside this hole. And it was sort of like I was looking at this kind of like, I guess, the ground or whatever, with like this black space behind it, and there's this hole, and the shaman, or he's not a shaman, I guess, but he's kind of taking the role of what a shaman would do, I guess. So I remember, and what they do is they smoke tobacco and they blow it on you. They go like, and they blow it all over you. And I remember him blowing tobacco, or yeah, so I remember his face sort of like, but like kind of, it wasn't really his face. It was sort of like, it was his face, but it also wasn't. It was kind of like a trippy version of his face, just kind of like float up, and it kind of got in between me, not in physical space, but just in terms of like connection. He got in between me and the part of myself that I was yelling at, and he just like kind of floated there, like his face, like that, and that spider represented that part of myself that I was yelling at. And he was singing to the spider, and he blew tobacco, and the spider's like in this vision. It's just his face floating, just blowing tobacco on the spider. And then the spider like kind of poked its head out of the hole. He's like, is it safe? And then yeah, and then like he continued singing, and the spider was like felt like safe and loved, I guess, and climbed out of the hole. And then he went up to the shaman's face and was like, oh yeah, and he's just like started dancing to to the shaman's music, and I was like, oh, that's so cute. And then like all these cockroaches came out of the hole that represented all like the dark sides of myself that like I couldn't give any love to, and they just came out and they just started dancing, and they were all just dancing to the shaman. And yeah, that was a pretty powerful moment of like sort of this realization that you can't fight negativity. It's the same thing that's going on like globally, like people trying to stop wars by fighting against it, when really like love is the answer. It's kind of like a little bit cliche, but it's true. It's just like, in order to like, love is the thing that transforms the things that you don't like into the things that you do like. So yeah, you never get rid of something by yelling at it or being mean or putting it down or whatever. You just gotta facilitate its own growth, and that applies to like things in the outside world, but also things inside you, like parts of yourself that you kind of want to pretend aren't part of you, but they are. Anyway, yeah, that was a profound moment for me, and it led me on this path. I met this girl, Jillian, who runs like a self-love course that talks about a lot of the stuff that like, because I told her about this and she was saying that this is kind of what she does. So I'm gonna link her thing in the bottom. I'm halfway done the course. I got distracted, but it's really good. It's definitely given me a lot of perspective and stuff. Yeah, so that's that. I'm going to move on to the synchronicities now. So, for those of you that don't know, I was visiting England over the last month, and I'm going to talk about two of them. So, the first one was I was hanging out with Rose, my girlfriend, and we were sitting. So we were at her aunt and uncle's place, which is right on the Thames, like the river that runs through London. And we were sitting on the edge of like this flood barrier, which it's fascinating, I guess. There, like sometimes the river goes so high that it actually floods your garden, and if you don't have that flood barrier, it's going to go all the way to your house. So I don't know. Anyway, we were sitting on that, and I was talking to like her and her family about rain, and I was telling them how like one of the things that I miss about Montreal is that in Montreal when it rains like hard, and here on the West Coast that doesn't happen. Like people are like, oh, there's a storm, but like it's what I call a drizzle. It's like nothing. So I miss the times when like the rain would crush you, and then you'd have to run to your home, and like you spend 30 seconds out and your shirt would be drenched or whatever, but it was like really exhilarating, and there was like thunder and lightning and everything, so we don't really get that here. Anyway, so I was talking to them and they were like, yeah, like London doesn't get those kinds of storms. So Rose and I were sitting there, and I offered to do what's called a rampage of appreciation, which is a term coined by Esther Hicks or Abraham Hicks. I'm gonna link their stuff down below if you're interested in this stuff. That's a book you should read, definitely 100%. She talks about how when you're when you're appreciating things, you're raising your point of attraction to like uh, to attract things that you appreciate. So it's like kind of a virtuous cycle or whatever. So we were sitting there, and yeah, I was like, oh, I appreciate those leaves, or I appreciate there was a weeping willow there. I was like, I really like weeping willows. So it was like, I appreciate this weeping willow. It's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, I appreciate those bugs that are just going up and down or whatever. And then I was like, I appreciate this bench or whatever. And Rose was like, I appreciate that. And then I was like, oh, I appreciate your family. And then it just kept going like back and forth. And then, okay, so the way this works, the way that I've read that it works, is that when you're focusing on things that you appreciate, to make something happen beyond your physical body control, like to manifest something, you need to appreciate it before it happens. So I was like, just in the midst of appreciating things that we were looking at, I said, I appreciate torrential downpours. And keep in mind, this was like, it was a cloudy day, but it wasn't raining. It wasn't like, the sun was still out, I think, when I said that. And Rose just like literally within 5 seconds, she just pointed across the river. She's like, "What's that?" And you can see like this barrier or whatever. It's like, and we were like, "Oh my god!" And then like we were like running together and jumping, and we were like celebrating or whatever, just dancing in the rain and stuff. And it was exactly like what I described earlier, like our like the entire torrential downpour lasted probably like 1 minute, but our clothes were completely soaked. So yeah, and I was like, shit, that was really awesome. Um, yeah, so that's one of the things that I found really cool. Uh, and then we got into the house after, and her aunt and uncle were there, and they were like, "Did you get to the greenhouse at least for safety?" And we were like, "No, no, we were too busy dancing and jumping around." Um, yeah, that was cool. So that's synchronicity number one. Number two was I was hanging out with Rose's friend Chelsea. We were somewhere in London in the middle, and um, she was like in the process of sort of thinking about like her future and stuff. And I asked her, I was like, well, I was kind of pointing at things. I'm like, oh, what's your favorite flower? What do you like about this? What do you like about that? So just trying to like raise the vibration of our conversation. Not that it was like low to begin with or anything, but I just thought it would be interesting to talk to, because Rose had gone off and left us alone for the first time. So like I was just saying like, oh, what's your favorite this? What's your favorite that or whatever? And I was like, what's your dream job? And she was like, oh, I've always wanted to be uh, a music video director. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, why? What do you like about that? And then she was like, oh, it involves like art and whatever. And she just started describing all these qualities of the job that she liked about it. And then I took like a random turn. And this was like downtown London or whatever. And we see these like five BMX bikers circling around this guy rapping. And then like I'm like, we're like, oh, what's going on there? What's going on there? And we look more to the side, and there's this dude with like a camera and the whole video stabilizing equipment and everything, and he's just going around, and we're like, what? I'm like, you should talk to those guys. Like, this is a sign. You were literally just telling me that your dream job is to be a music video maker, and there it is. So, and she was like kind of hesitant to go talk to them because they seem like, I guess they kind of seem like big shots or whatever. And also she didn't want to disturb their flow. But eventually they stopped, and I was like, "Okay, look, if you're not gonna go, I'll go." And she was like, still hesitating. So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm going." So I went and I talked to them, and I was like, "This is my friend. Like, she wants to be a music video director," and they had like we were all hanging out or whatever. Um, I was talking to one of the guys involved in the process and stuff, and we almost had lunch together, but then it just naturally kind of branched off, and I think they got each other's contact information, but the whole situation played out like so perfectly, and it was again one of these things of like the thing that and the other story have in common is that when both of those things happened, we were in like that kind of realm of appreciating things and being grateful for things, and that's when it all comes in. So yeah, so um, those are my two stories for the day. Yeah, see you next time.